We're good. I'd like to call to order the Gateway School Board of Directors special school board meeting for Thursday, June 18th, 2020. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
of the United States of America, to the republic for nation with liberty for all.
All right, Barney, I think we're ready for a roll call. Mr. Gottman is on his way in the building, so we can adjust accordingly.
Mr. Caleri. Here. Mrs. Delaney.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Gottman. Mr. McIntyre.
Here.
Mr. Ritter.
Here.
Mrs. Warning. Here. Mr. Williams.
Here.
All right, at this time, we would like to open the floor up for any comments from residents on agenda items. Barney, is there anybody signed up to speak?
No one is called in advance, no.
All right, is there anybody that has anything that they would like to address the board as far as the agenda? There's a microphone right up here. Please state your name and whether you're a resident of Pitcairn or Monroeville.
Okay, I'm a Monroeville resident, 1330 Foxborough Drive. I would just like to take a brief moment to address the board on the athletic return to play policy and review. I first want to thank you for taking the time to hear this. I think it's a very sensitive issue and something that we want to get right, certainly on all of our minds. I'd like to give an opinion, not only as the vice president of the Gateway Football Boosters, but also as a parent of a player, and maybe more importantly as a healthcare provider. I've been a nurse practitioner for 20 years and care for patients and families in this community. I've been in and out of facilities, so what I'm about to say doesn't come lightly, and only from the perspective of sports. It also comes from thinking about safety and how we do this. The most important thing that I just want to say is related to the element of risk. So I can just imagine, as you weigh this opinion about when do we bring our children back to participate in sports or schools or anything else, what is the risk of that? And I just want to give one statistic that I think I found to be most important in terms of how COVID is responding. According to the Allegheny County website, the borough of Monroeville has 38 reported cases. That is a rate of 13.4 per 10,000 residents, which equals to be 0.134%. The data from the county has reported that at ages 0 to 19, the incidence is 4% across the board. So when I think that when you look at the population of children under age of 18, the relative risk and incidence in our community is relatively low. We take risks every day. I think it's something that we don't take lightly, but I just want to impress upon you from that standpoint what we're dealing with in terms of incidence and risk to the community. And I think that with safe mitigation and the proposal that's put forward, similar to our other neighboring communities, such as Woodland Hills, I know that Franklin and Plum are either practicing or finalizing that. It's beautiful to see there's baseball going on our field here, out enjoying athletics, and it's a beautiful site. So just want to show my support and our support to go ahead and approve that proposal to return to play and do it in a safe way and get our children back to some sense of normalcy and getting athletics back to their life. So thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Nobody? Okay. Moving on to Section F, Administrative Report. Dr. Short.
Thank you. Can I have Dr. Shaggy take this item? He's the pandemic director.
Dr. Chady, can you put your
Microphone.
sorry. Not on?
You want to step over here?
No? That's a fake mic.
Do you want to take mine?
And just for the record, Dr. Chakey has been appointed the pandemic coordinator for the district. Pennsylvania Department of Education, along with Governor Wolf's office, has asked that every district identify that individual, and Dr. Chakey will assume that role.
So for item number 1, under secondary education, the PIAA Health and Safety Plan, approval of the Gateway School District's Athletic Department PIAA Health and Safety Plan as depicted in Exhibit A.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
And a second?
John, second.
Motion by Mr. Clary, second by Mr. Ritter. All right, anybody have anything to ask, add, clarify about the plan in front of us?
I got a question. Oh, maybe a couple. Looking over all this, I know there'll be modification of transportation, all the supplies needed for all the testing and the staff, and looking at our budget and all the items there, is there an associated cost with all this? To get all the supplies, to have the trainers present for everything, for the potential added buses?
Just wanted to respond specifically to the impetus of this plan as it was coordinated between about 120 statewide trainers along with all the school districts across the state doing sort of a collaboration. We were given a heads up that this was the direction the state was going to go, that it was going to be the district level. So with that coordination, really the only supplies that we're looking at in this return to play, which applies to voluntary summer workouts right now, not games in the fall. Again, that specifically says we'll adjust as we get into the next phase or the next changes in this, this pandemic, including fall and winter, potentially talking about things like spectators and concession stands, and actually what transportation looks like if we're going back to our physical school buildings with our students in the fall, or it's blended, or wherever we go with that. Those are all recommendations within where we haven't calculated what that cost will be, because we really don't have a great idea of the transportation recommendations and how many of those will still be in play. As far as the very specific things we're going to do in order to allow our athletes to come back on campus and our band members to come back on campus and other co-curriculars and extracurriculars, it's really just the associated cost of, each building had temporal scan thermometers that were purchased previously. So I'm now in possession of 7 of them that can be passed from coach to coach. We've also purchased at a cost of about $30 or $40 an abundance of alcohol wipes to swab them in between each person that they might touch, along with a disposable cap that is for that purpose as well. So really the only cost associated, the trainer's on his normal time in the summer, and we'll be present for all those to assist. And the associated costs were just really the wipes, because we had the thermometers already. One last thing, there were a couple of quick edits that we felt were important. We had left it, and many districts did. There were about 40 districts that have passed it statewide, very similar version, because again, we all collaborated. We had left it, like many did, that we could include things like a temperature check. Generally speaking, one of the mindsets from the training group was, look, if you didn't have a temperature on Monday and you can self-report, if you have a fever, you don't come, that sort of thing, you're going to want to ask the question. But some of you had felt like, and we were kind of on the fence on it, language-wise. It's now been edited to update in the current copy. It specifically says we will take their temperature every day. We issued helmets. It didn't have a workout, but we decided to use a helmet issue for football sort of as a test run to go through the process. We have a Google Docs drop-down menu, iPad type form with the survey questions about symptoms. And then we also have the temperature check there, recorded every day for every student athlete or student activity person who might come on campus. It's not been any update. It specifically says we will take the temperature. We issued helmets, didn't have a workout, but we decided to use a helmet issue sort of as a test run to go through the process. We have a Google Docs drop-down menu, iPad type form, survey questions.
Yeah, he's trying right now to.
And we also
He has
have
to
the temperature
dance
check
up and
there.
down the
Yeah.
entire soundboard to get you on.
Thousand little buttons he's got to find. Search around for me.
DJ Micah.
Hear me now.
That's a lot better.
So, just, okay, I think we're on now. So, Coach Hall, I'm going to ask you a minute whether the plan as it is, the one we're going to vote on tonight, is fixed in stone, or whether it's the type of plan that needs to be adapted later on. But first, I'm going to go into a couple other questions and build the case for why we're here tonight, okay?
Okay,
So,
oh, do you want me to answer first or wait?
That's a toss-up. I'm going to come to you a little bit later. So the question tonight is, what is this we're voting on? Is it a policy? Is it a set of administrative regulations? Or is it a plan? So we tossed the question to the PSBA folks, and they kicked back with some advice to us. They said it is neither a policy is something that's really high level that the board gets to vote on, such as, will the school have sports? That's a policy. And then the administrative regulation is the set of details that gets handed over to the administrative staff, and they get to say how we do it. Will there be buses? Will they be paid for? How much will it cost? What will the equipment be? How we should get the materials from the suppliers? Will there be practices in the summer? So all the details are at the administrative level. So you got two levels, and our question here is, what are we voting on tonight? A policy, such as shall we have sports, or a set of administrative regulations? They kicked back and said it's neither. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is, should we vote on it? So the recommendation is that we should vote on it because it's from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Governor Wolf came up with some instructions last week and then modified that a day later, saying that if you're going to begin to come back to school, if you're going to begin to have sports, you need to have a plan in place regarding the COVID-19 protocols that your district might select, and every district is different. So depending on whether you're in the red, the green, or the yellow phase, you've got to come up with some sort of a battle plan on how you're going to keep the kids safe on the practice fields and on the competitive fields. So that's what we're voting on tonight. Now, with respect to how quickly it came up, like I said, the board got tossed this document Friday, took a look at it over the weekend, saw that there were some edits that needed to be changed. We made a few touch-ups to it. It's going to be modified again probably, but the long and short of it, the question before us is, does this seem like a solid enough plan that would help get the kids back to school in a safe manner? Now, we conducted a vote via the board. It's called a consensus vote, where we say we took a look at it. It seems logical. Let's put it, out there for review so that we can have an official action on it and vote on it. So that's why we called this special meeting tonight. And correct me if I'm wrong, folks, but that's why we're here tonight, and that's why the board is all assembled, and the members of the public, so that you can see that we're doing our level best to try to react to things that change at the state level, with Governor Wolf's office trying to keep the kids safe, Department of Education trying to keep the kids safe, Don Hall, who's the burden's lying on him, Bob Brown, who's got to get the fields ready for everything, and all the water, and everything opened up and prepared for us, all the seats cleaned every week, all that kind of stuff. Poor Dr. Short, poor Dr. Chakey, all this is falling on, and the poor board. So we're doing our best. So don't think that we're trying to hide anything. We're even stumbling over the question as to how much to reveal to the public as to what we're trying to do and react to right now. So step by step, as things come before us, we'll bring them out to you, we'll ask for inputs. That's why I asked Don Hall the question, is this a solid document? Because I'd like to do some editing on it myself, just haven't had time to get around to it. But when we come to the vote, you're going to hear whether we vote either in favor of it, as in its current status right now, or whether we should wait, like some people might want us to do, to follow all the rules of the Sunshine Act. That is, to have it be presented, to roll it out for 30-day public review, and then at the next study session following it, bring it up for discussion, and then at the regular board meeting following that, to vote on it. By that time, summer would be over. So that's one of the other pressures that we're working under right now. How do we push this thing through and do it in such a way that we're open and transparent and timely? And so I hope you understand, we're pouring our hearts out here. Again, don't hold us too strictly to the letter of the law. The letter of the law also has an intent. Our intent is to have sports for kids and for them to be safe. Our intent is also to do things transparently, and sometimes those clash. And so I hope you forgive us for not being as super transparent as we could be, but if we would do that, kids wouldn't have a season, a summer season practice, and we can't have that either. So is there anything anybody else would like to add to that before I toss it to Don?
Oh, I think so.
Sure.
I'm going to wait until I can, there we go. Just real quickly, I would like to say John's comments represent your opinion. My sentiment is I ask every single one of you in attendance here, every single one of you in Monroeville and Pitcairn, to please hold me accountable to the letter of the law. Thank you. That's all I have.
Very good. Okay, so Don, how solid is this plan, and if the public wanted to offer some edits to it, how might they go about doing that?
Well, two things. One, I just wanted to speak to amplify what you'd mentioned about the Governor Wolf and Bob Lombardi from the PIAA, along with the PDE and the Department of Health. The reason, again, that we need board approval for this particular plan is the directive of both the governor and the executive director of the PIAA, our sports agency in Pennsylvania, essentially saying that you have to have a board-approved plan at the district level and post it on your website in order to resume. So it really did, and we got the word that that was going to be the case, and which prompted the work we did in advance that we could get that out after a Wednesday announcement. We got it in the hands of the administration on Thursday and to you guys on Friday. So basically, there are two places early, one that says the guidance is preliminary. It basically says as more information becomes available, we'll react to that information. So if we find that there's something missing in this plan, or that we missed on some aspect of it or need to fix it, that gives us the opportunity to still update as things change, because we all know that things are constantly changing. In this pandemic, there's also one that basically says, look, it's constantly changing as new information and treatments become available. These recommendations will be adjusted as needed, from the CDC, the Pennsylvania Department of Health, and really any other agency that we think makes sense to update our plan. The last thing I wanted to mention is that accompanying this plan is also a parental waiver form that each family can access now in Skyward. And our parents are given the, hey, and I'll paraphrase very succinctly, we're going to do everything we can to keep your child safe. That's the utmost priority here. Here's some recommendations. Keep them home if they're sick. We're going to screen them. Here's what's going to happen. But understand that no entity on planet Earth can guarantee the complete safety of your child from this disease, another disease, or injury, or any other hazard. So parents are signing that as well. So just to be clear on parent involvement in the process, they certainly didn't have a hand in writing the process, but they are going to get it on our website, and they're certainly getting the opportunity to say, you know what, I understand what you're doing here, but I want to keep my child home. These are voluntary workouts. These are not practices. These are not, we're not cutting any athletes based on this. There's even coaches' instruction sheets that are going out to each coach that say, let's be liberal about attendance. Understand that if there's anybody's in doubt, don't come. And that's the nature of summer workouts. But again, the important thing is that we're going to have coach-supervised workouts with our athletes doing the right things under safe and supervised conditions, along with, again, being very mindful of all the unique challenges by the pandemic.
Coach Hall, just one quick question. As far as being in the green phase, it's recommending, obviously nothing over 250 people in attendance for just about anything, and then 50% capacity. I'm assuming that we're applying that to any crowds that would gather for whatever reason.
We're actually strongly urging no spectators at any of these workouts. There's really not a lot of reason. If a parent wants to sit in the top of the bleachers or stand back at the railing, we're probably not going to chase them out of there. But we're asking our student athletes and our parents, these are just workouts. There's really not a lot to see here. Let's not attend. But we are strictly complying with the green phase recommendations. And again, we're not talking yet about crowds in the fall in stadiums and venues and gyms. We're talking about this 250 number should be able to be supported in anybody's stadium to get all their athletes on the field in some capacity. Although we're staying in groups and it's separated and contact trace and all that kind of stuff, any sporting group and any activity, even the band, wouldn't have more than that 250 number. When we get into things like the gyms or the weight rooms, we're working on, it's more likely a 50% capacity because the gym has a capacity bigger clearly than that, but the cafeteria has a capacity bigger than 500. The gym does, but weight room, no. So we'll specifically, adjudicate those spaces based on the 50% rule.
And Chelsea, if I may ask you, is there any input that you as a solicitor might have for the board or for the public right now that we haven't thought of yet? Or an affirmation that you could offer?
Hello? I think as long as you're following what Governor Wolf has put out there and you've satisfied those guidelines and anything in addition that you would like to add, because you can be more restrictive, not less, as long as you're satisfying those requirements and you're doing it here tonight through public meeting, you're going to adopt it and it's going to be put on your website. It's up to the board of whatever else that legally you'd want to put in.
Okay, that seems to do a good job of covering us. But Dr. Chakey, I'd like to ask about the other school districts. I know when you helped craft this document, you have to take into consideration that the protocol that we might set up here might be different from another school district. How can you go about reconciling what a different school district might do with respect to their protocols against ours to still find a way to keep the kids safe as they compete?
I talked to Mr. Hall a lot about this, and the fact that this document was a collaboration of many different representatives from UPMC, some other nurses, trainers, and also athletic directors, that it's a solid plan. It's the direction that a lot of districts are going in. In some cases, this has been adopted by other districts already. Not the exact plan, but a lot of the same components of the plan. So we feel comfortable with it the way it is, but that's not saying that it's going to stay set exactly in this manner throughout the whole pandemic, because just like there's uncertainty for us, we don't know if we go back to the yellow phase, then we're going to have to adjust the plan. If we go to red, obviously, we're really going to have to adjust the plan, but it's a fluid situation that we're going to keep taking a look at, but using this as our guide.
Thank you for laying this before the board tonight. Thank you.
And also, if I could add that there is a strong sense of accountability with this plan as well, because, in our conferences with, of course, Dr. Chakey and Mr. Hall and the PIAA, athletic directors, state organizations, one of the things that we wanted to ensure to our constituents is that we will be documenting and taking temperatures of every child, student athlete that walks into our venues and have a historical document of those temperatures, including those coaches and also the trainer as they enter the facilities daily. So it's just not student athletes, it's coaches, it's teachers, it's staff, and the trainer daily.
All right, Michael. You got me? Okay. John, actually, I just want to address one other question you had about as far as, you mentioned sunshine and the timeframe for how we would normally do this. It's not a policy, so it would not actually need the 30-day review. By state mandate, it didn't require a policy. It recommends perhaps working on a policy later, which I'm sure we will probably move forward in doing. So because of that, it doesn't require the standard 30-day policy notice in order to pass. It did, however, require a board approval. And that's the reason for the meeting tonight, is this was the earliest date, once we figured out how we were going to do everything, that we could get proper advertisement and get people in to do a proper vote in public. And I really just have one question about the actual wording in here. Basically, the first word is recommendations. So I'm just wondering, are these measures going to be required, or are we simply recommending? And where do we make that call?
As was noted earlier, less restrictive versus more restrictive. Where we're specifically going to require it, we use the word in the actual numbered item, required. Things like the screening will be required every day, including a temperature check and the survey. We're going to promote things like washing their hands, but we're not going to, follow them into, to the bathroom or at home, and those are some things we can't necessarily enforce. We are making hand sanitizers available as we can. We've added stations in places like the weight room that include disinfectants and wipes to wipe things down. But we could certainly even amend that word to say.
It's nitpicky, and I apologize, but it's things we have to look at when we're doing anything even close to being policy.
I understand.
Is that gives a backdoor to say, well, it's only a recommendation. I'm not going to do it. So that's my only recommendation would be that if we replace the word recommendation for all levels there with requirements. Correct. And we'd be required to recommend that.
That can happen.
Micah? If I can add just one more thing to that, because I was looking here, if we're looking at just language, making sure everything is all good here. One thing that stood out to me, I know you mentioned all the supplies we have, the thermometers and all that. On the first page here, number 1, the type of screen will be dependent upon the available resources and the phase level. I don't have a problem with the phase level, but when it comes to available resources, is there a way we can have that worded where it's the same resources every single time?
Yeah, we actually, that's one of the edits in the copy that is not in your hands, but is the one that was handed out to the public, and that is newly updated. And basically, one reads, athletes, coaches, and staff will undergo a COVID-19 health screening prior to any practice, event, or team meeting. The purpose is to check for signs and symptoms of COVID-19. The screenings will include and require a written symptom questionnaire and a temperature check, which will be recorded and kept on file for every individual. Temperatures at 100.4 or higher will be sent home. So there's no, we're not talking about supplies anymore or as available or as resources allow. That is a hard and fast. And again, with the recommendation word above it being changed to, requirements, we're requiring that of all of our coaches and athletes every day as a non-negotiable.
All right, very good. Thank you.
I have a very basic, simple question. And I agree with the, again, I'm getting into the grass a little bit here, just to make sure that everybody has a water bottle. If the kids don't have one, or do you have one to give them? Do we have one to give them?
If I could step in, and I know Mr. Brown's here as well, along with Mr. Hall. When we met earlier this week, the days are compounding itself on me, but one of the things that we had discussed was down there by the tennis court area, the entrance to the stadium, we have a traditional water fountain that we wanted to retrofit into one of the bottle fountains to allow students the opportunity, if they have a bottle, to utilize that. But also, we were going to have available bottles of water in case of an emergency for students.
All right, if I have my mic on, I'll keep talking. I'm gonna wait, there it is. All right, Mrs. Delaney, Mr. Gallagher, did you have anything to add?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, because my signals seem to have been going in and out. Yeah, going back to the pre-screening workout, and I know they've said this before and over again. The wording is what I wanted to be clear on, because I had asked the question, would there be a temperature check prior to every workout? And I see that it's a questionnaire, or they would be looking for signs and symptoms of COVID-19 prior to the workout. But irregardless of whether there are signs and symptoms, are the temperature checks done prior to every workout? Not just the questionnaire, but an actual, do they have the supplies and the ability to do a temperature check prior to every workout?
Hi, Mrs. Delaney. It's Don Hall here again. The wording very specifically now, the updated wording says, and I quote, "The screenings will include and require a written symptom questionnaire and a temperature check, which will be recorded and kept on file for every individual. Temperatures at 100.4 or higher will be sent home." I noted earlier also that we now have 7 temporal scanner thermometers that we are able to pass between activities. We've asked different booster groups to also, as needed, if they want to purchase them or donate to them to their relative programs, they can do that. And we certainly have the ability to clean them between uses as well. So we have supplies on hand.
And who would be doing? Who would
sorry?
be doing those temperature checks? Who would be doing the temperature checks?
They're going to be done mostly by coaches with the supervision of the trainer. The trainer is going to be on site for every group that comes in, but because of let's say we have 60 or 70 football players, our trainer was comfortable with having pairs of coaches. One's operating the thermometer, reading off the temperature, the other's completing the form on an iPad for each student. So we're dividing and conquering that way. But the trainer is the overseer of that activity for each event.
Yeah, the reason I asked that was because, yes, you can have a written questionnaire, and some kids may not know whether they do or don't have a temperature, and they may want to play, even if they did. So that's why I was saying it's important that we know for their health and safety as well, and not just relying on them telling you.
100% agree. That's, it's 2 questions. One that asks, do you have any of these symptoms? And they're the ones listed. And the other says, have you been in close contact with anybody who has any of these symptoms within the last 14 days? And then it's a temperature check, again, every time, mandated, recorded, and then signed by who the screener was as well, and kept on a spreadsheet.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Susan. Scott, you got anything?
Yes, you can hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Just a clarification and then a request. The clarification is, I believe I know the answer to this, but I think it's important for the public to know the answer to this. This plan will extend to other activities that are outside of the athletic department, such as marching band and color guard and those groups also?
Mr. Gallagher, yes, Don Hall here. The new title of the document in the final edit says Gateway School District PIAA/athletics and co-curricular activities health and safety plan. And that umbrella now extends to those other groups, including the marching band, if we're going to bring in anybody to do performing arts type stuff, or really anybody in a group that would come on campus, they will follow the same screening protocol and requirements of this document.
Okay. I was pretty sure that that's what you meant by that umbrella, but I thought it would be good just to have that clarified. The other request I have, under that first section, the item number 7, It reads, plan in place if a student or employee gets sick. I'd like to see that plan attached to this document, if possible. I know that there's a plan in existence, but having it all in one location may be helpful for the public to understand what that is.
Michael, if you can, Reverend, I think if I can probably answer that. I think it was kind of answered earlier when it was explained that this is coming down from the district administration down to the building level administration, and obviously including Mr. Hall. So I think we have to have a plan in place. So if you have practice at Mosside, behind, in the football field or Gateway Middle, there's going to be a different plan in place for each scenario. And it will be up to the administration there to have said plan.
And also.
Okay. That might have happened one time when our sound dropped out on our end. So, thank you.
It may not be necessary, but also when we expand on the pre-workout screening for the phase that we're in right now in the document, it basically says any person with positive symptoms reported or recorded should not be allowed to take part in workouts and will contact their primary care provider or other appropriate healthcare professionals. So we're saying stay home if you have a problem. If we have anything that we question in terms of your responses or your temperature, we send you home. You have to see a healthcare provider, and you're going to be required to have a clearance from that medical professional to come back to work out with us.
All right, with that, I'm actually going to look for a motion to amend the wording to change the words recommendation twice at the top of the document to requirements. Moved by Mr. Clary. Mr. Clary? Did you change your name?
Sometimes.
Mr. Clary, and second by Mr. Gottman.
So the public's aware, before we vote here, this is the wording, the phrasing within the first page of the document from recommendations to requirements.
And with that, we'll do a roll call vote, Bonnie, when you have a moment.
With the amended language, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I did have Mrs. Cerrucci on for a moment. I don't know if she's still there, but she did give me a yes vote. For the record. Thank you. So, Mrs. Delaney. Mrs. Delaney.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said before that.
Mrs. Cerrucci was on, and she did give a yes vote.
Okay, so now we are on the actual vote.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, because I couldn't hear you. I'm going to vote yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Are we voting on the amendment?
The amended version, which would be the entire document.
Okay, all right, yes.
Mr. Gottman.
Yes.
Mr. McIntyre.
Yes.
Mr. Ritter.
Yes. I don't need a microphone.
Mrs. Warning. Yes. Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Clary.
Yep.
Motion carries.
All right. With that, extended section F. We're looking for, are there any further comments from residents on non-agenda items? Anybody want to come yell at us about anything? While we're here.
And so just to validate, if you want to offer input, you go to the Gateway website. On the front page, you can click on the document, download it, read it, and send your comments to the Gateway School Board email address, and we'll all get it.
We will update the document and have it on the website by tomorrow, so the language would be corrected.
Two whole words. All right, Dr. Short, anything you want to add before we look for a motion to adjourn?
Just want to thank everyone involved, Mr. Hall, Dr. Chakey. I know this process really started weeks ago with discussions at the PIAA, PD, and Governor Wolf's office, recognizing that this COVID pandemic, first and foremost, requires all of us in the positions that we hold to ensure that the health, safety, and welfare of all of our constituents, our student athletes, are met. We are not here by any means to simply say we're opening up to allow practices to occur without precautions in place. We feel that this document allows for that to happen with precautions, but understand that it is a very, very fluid situation. Every day that we turn on the news, there's information coming out about different states throughout our country that are seeing an influx, a rise in COVID cases. Hopefully, we're on that downward trend as the data has been reflective of Pennsylvania. However, as we begin to open up, it's important that we all take those precautions to ensure that we're not back into a yellow or red phase. So I would like to thank everyone involved with that document, and hopefully we can continue this process. There's more to come out with the health and safety pandemic plan for opening up of schools. Surveys did go out. Information has been received from PDE and Governor Wolf's office even as of today. And we're hoping to at least provide some further information at our June 30th meeting as far as where we're at with options for opening up. So that's all I have.
All right. With that, looking for a motion to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Play ball.
Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, meeting is adjourned.